Hey everybody, Hoosier Jedi here with another review for you. This time we're talking about episode 14 of season 5 of Star Wars The Clone Wars called Eminence. Oh man, folks, I gotta say, I had really high hopes for this episode and I was not let down. In one episode, we get more cool, awesome stuff than in the last 5 episodes combined. I mean, that's how long that Commander Gascon nonsense ran for. And yikes, this is it's such a relief. Sort of in that kind of the sewer isn't clogged up anymore kind of relief, if you take my meaning. But well, anyway, let's just dive right into it. Now, this is basically the main crux of this is Pre Vizsla and Death Watch teaming up with Darth Maul and Savage Opress, and them kind of creating their own little Legion of Doom. We get the Black Sun. We get some guys called the Pike Clan. Now, according to Wikipedia, these guys are just being introduced here in this episode. So while they're certainly presented as being somebody formidable, this is their first time in the Star Wars universe, and ultimately resulting in an alliance with the Hutts. And we get yet another appearance by Jabba himself. So yeah, this looks pretty bad. And it's really interesting when Maul and Pre are having this little conversation, feeling each other out, kind of getting a read on the other guy. It sort of struck me that they both do share one very core, very similar belief, and that is peace is a lie. If you're familiar with the Sith Code, you know that this is one of the opening lines to it. Darth Maul, we've even seen him when he was reintroduced here, done crazy as heck with Sam Witwer just knocking the voice work out of the park, him reciting the Sith Code. And while it isn't stated word for word, Pre does not believe in peace. I mean, he believes in the Mandalorians are warriors, they should be fighting, this is what really makes them strong, and embracing anything besides peace is basically the antithesis of what their culture is supposed to be about. So really, he does believe that peace is a lie. It is not the Mandalorian way. And first of all, I gotta say, it is really just insanely awesome that we get more Jon Favreau back as Pre Vizsla. We of course have Katie Sackhoff back as Bo-Katan. Just looking at all the people we have, we have Sam Witwer, we have Clancy Brown as Savage Opress. I mean, if you really just stop and think about all the insanely good actors we have doing voice work on this show, it's just mind-blowing at times. But another thing that I liked about this episode is that Maul even kind of brings up, when it's even mentioned, he basically even flat out says that all these things coming together on their side is the will of the Force. Now, we usually are seeing the will of the Force kind of coming down on the side of the Jedi. If you're familiar with the Star Wars: The Old Republic, the Jedi Consular's training is believed to be guided by the Force. We see so many other times where people say, well, this thing happened because it's the will of the Force. But we have to keep in mind that the Force does have a dark side. And while the dark side is many things, inactive is not one of them. So, and you got to think, would Palpatine have gotten away with half of what he does if at least some aspect of the Force was not on his side? I mean, granted, a lot of this is just the Jedi not being able to see what's literally right in front of their face, but, still. So, we do have to always keep in mind that no matter what the Jedi might say, we shouldn't take their word for it that the Force is necessarily on everybody's side. I mean, that is kind of the way the Star Wars universe, at least from my read, tends to err. It just generally tends to say the Force is a positive thing, it wants good, but we do have to accept that, okay, if this is true, then, well, doesn't the dark side of the Force then want bad? I mean, I'm sure there are people who are much more well versed in Star Wars history or the various arguments that characters in the Star Wars universe have had, and certainly fans amongst themselves have had in regards to this. But I'm just presenting it to you as something to keep in mind. Because honestly, I really would prefer to think that the Force is generally a benevolent power. But I can't disregard the possibility that there is some aspect to the Force that may not be so kindly. If you're familiar with the character of Darth Treya, she even advocated the idea that the Force, even for Jedi, for both Jedi and Sith, was insidious and something that needed to be destroyed. But we're getting a little off topic here. Now, looking at just the people that are brought into this, obviously, the Sith teaming up with Death Watch is all kinds of bad. But what's really interesting is the main folks that there are brought in are Black Sun. Now, Black Sun are a crime syndicate. They've been around since the days of the Old Republic. They're seriously, seriously bad news. But if you're familiar with the expanded universe, there was back in around 2000, I think it was, there was a mini-series in the comics written by a fellow by the name of Ron Mars, best known, I suppose, for being the writer of Green Lantern, where it's basically kind of a Darth Maul miniseries. It's even called Star Wars Darth Maul. And in this miniseries, this is set before the time of the Phantom Menace. Maul is, of course, still Darth Sidious's apprentice, and Sidious sends him on this mission to basically hamstring Black Sun. And he basically says, okay, the Black Sun crime syndicate is getting too powerful. They potentially, when I take power, might be able to challenge me. I want you to go out there and just kill all the leaders of Black Sun. And there's this really absolutely awesome scene where Maul says to him over the communicator, "Do you wish Black Sun to be destroyed utterly?" And Sidious says, "No, I may have a use for them someday." Well, that particular decision, regardless of its level of canon at this point, seems to have come and bitten old Palpatine in the butt a little bit. I mean, it is supremely ironic that these guys who Maul had previously struck this enormous blow against are now the ones who are going to serve as his power base. But, of course, it also makes a good deal of sense, because over the course of that story, it's all about Maul not just taking out the leaders of Black Sun, but infiltrating the organization to the degree where he can find out where the people he needs to go and kill are. So, which, again, right then and there shows you that Maul's a much more intelligent guy than just what we saw in the movies. Now here we would get to see that level of familiarity with Black Sun coming into play, coming in, and him being able to turn that to his advantage. This wouldn't have been... I'd really would have to go back and look, but it would probably be not super long, less than 20 years before this happened. More like 15, I guess, probably. I'd have to go back and look. I don't really feel like doing that. But anyway, of course, Black Sun in that time would have started to rebuild itself. And we even do get to see at least some of the new leaders. Now, if best I can tell, I'm pretty sure those guys that we saw on the planet were all Feline. And of course, if you're familiar with the Star Wars Expanded Universe, you know that by the time of Luke Skywalker and all that, one of the biggest guys in Black Sun out there is Prince Shizor. And he is, of course, a Feline. But the impression I was always given was even then that not all of the leaders of Black Sun were Feline. So I'm thinking we maybe are just seeing the leaders of one branch of Black Sun, rather than everybody who's a leader of Black Sun. Leaders of Black Sun are actually given the title of Vigo, which is the Italian word for nephew. So Maul definitely killed a Vigo. I mean, it's not explicitly stated, but it only makes sense. But whether or not those other Feline that were hanging around were all Vigos, or if they were just that particular guy's subordinates, it's a little unclear. I have a feeling that'll probably be clarified in expanded universe material at some point, but honestly, it's not really something we need to worry about right now. Now, I have seen a few people say that it's sort of a little déclassé for a Sith to be aspiring to be nothing more than just a glorified crime boss. Well, that's all well and good, but Maul has to start somewhere, and you gotta say, he's probably not going to tell previous, well, my ultimate goal is to dominate the galaxy. Obviously, these two guys don't 100% trust each other, and it's for perfectly good reasons. But presenting himself as a guy who basically wants to become head of the galactic underworld, okay, that's a motivation that Pre is going to buy into. He's not really going to have a hard time accepting that. And it is a pretty significant step for Maul if replacing Palpatine is his ultimate goal. He is going to need resources and all this other stuff if he's going to do that, because he not only has to deal with Palpatine, he also has to deal with the Jedi. And, given his condition, a double-bladed lightsaber and the ability to force choke people just ain't going to cut it. I mean, he did lose a fight to a Padawan after all. So, yeah. Now, let me see here. One thing that I really enjoyed was we get to see Nal Hutta. This is a planet that we only really got to see for the first time, even though it had been mentioned many times in Star Wars lore before, in Star Wars: The Old Republic. In fact, that's where the character I'm currently working on right now, That's where my bounty hunter, the character I most recently finished up, got his start. We only, of course, briefly get to see Hutta, but it's this really nasty industrial place full of toxic, poisonous swamps. Here we're just seeing it as a nasty, kind of rainy planet. But it was reasonably in keeping with what we've seen in Star Wars: The Old Republic. And, of course, makes perfect sense that that's where the leaders of the Hutt cartels would be based. Now, I do have to say, it is pretty funny that at the end of it all, Maul basically says to the One Hutt, so what you're telling me is that Jabba is in Jabba's palace. Well, I think Maul's being slightly unfair to the Hutt there, because as I understood it, the question was, where are the leaders of the Hutts? The ones who escaped from his attack on their headquarters. Now, as I understood it, that Hutt was saying they've gone and taken refuge in Jabba's palace. So shouldn't it have been that that's where the leaders of the Hutt cartel had gone besides Jabba? That was sort of their fallback position. Now, if that's the case, then he was actually telling Maul something rather important. But, it's entirely possible that I simply misunderstood that scene, or Maul was just being a big jerk. I mean, he's a Sith, after all. They're not exactly the nicest guys in the galaxy, am I right? But anyway, points to that scene on Hutta. That was some really nice action. Of course, we get to see Enbo and Sugi again. I won't lie to you folks. I was actually just a little bit kind of rooting for Enbo and Sugi and maybe some of their friends not to make it out of that situation. Not because I have anything against them, but just because that really would have driven it home that these are not guys to screw with. I mean, granted, we've seen Savage kill a member of the Jedi Council not that long ago, but think of it like Game of Thrones. You got to constantly have the bodies hitting the floor. But then again, this is at the end of the day a kid show, a rather violent and at times disturbingly brutal kid show, but a kid show nonetheless. So anyway, now the inevitability that Pre and Maul are going to turn on each other. Well, I don't think this is going to come as a real surprise to anybody, but that again seems like something that would be really spectacularly cool. We've seen Jedi fight bounty hunters, Mandalorians before. Look at the fight between Jango Fett and Obi-Wan Kenobi in Attack of the Clones. Granted, the Boba Fett didn't do so well in Return of the Jedi, but he wasn't even fighting a Jedi. He was fighting a blind smuggler. So yeah, but the idea of Sith versus Mandalorians, that sounds pretty awesome. And again, having played a bounty hunter in Star Wars: The Old Republic, where my bounty hunter has indeed fought Sith after joining the Mandalorians, spoiler for the game. Yeah, that's some pretty fun stuff. You can you can really pull some nasty tricks on Sith. And we do see that the Mandalorians are, of course, extraordinarily formidable. They are able to just, with some difficulty, punch through the Hutt's defenses on Nal Hutta. But even then, when they assault Jabba's palace, which I have to say is absolutely awesome. I mean, seriously, a big army of Mandalorians raising hell on Tatooine. Again, we see a little bit of that in Star Wars: The Old Republic, but seeing it here on Clone Wars, oh man! And then, of course, this all happening at such a well-known location as Jabba's palace. Yeah, that's just some awesome, awesome stuff. This is really shaping up to be, like I said, I really can't think of a better way to express it than the Legion of Doom. And knowing that this is all going to come to a head with them taking on the Jedi, folks, this is going to be some great stuff. And I believe that covers everything that I have to say about this episode. So, as always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.